I have clicked onto today's video on Hurricane Beryl. As is always the case in these videos, the thought expression are just mine, and if you're going to make any decisions ahead of the storm, look to the local office, local emergency management, and the National Hurricane Center for the best information local to you. So we've had yet another historic day in the Atlantic with Hurricane Beryl. Last night, the storm, when I left you, was just west of the Windward Islands and had been on the cusp of Category 5 intensity as the plane was flying in. Further data from that recon plane suggests that the storm was likely a Category 5 at that time and has sustained Category 5 since then up to now south of Hispaniola. Now, the storm is finally coming off its peak, which was likely around 175 miles per hour, from what I can tell in recon data, which for historical standpoint, that is now the earliest Category 5 on record in the Atlantic in July, or not just July, in the season in general, beating Hurricane Emily at 2005 by about 2 weeks. And it's also now the strongest hurricane on record in the Atlantic. And for those who are wondering, that reliable record goes back almost about 200 years to about 1851. So this is really historic and really amazing to see happening this time of year in the Caribbean. But we're far from done from the impacts of this hurricane, as, like I said, it's still a Category 5 right now. Now, I know that's very scary for those looking at Jamaica, and you might be thinking, oh, is this going to be a Category 5 coming my way? The good news is the storm is leveling off right now. We can see this in recon data. You'll see that we had them fly into the eye a few times in the past several hours, and the pressure was around 938, 939 millibars, as estimated by dropsondes. Dropped into the center of the hurricane. Now, we did just get another pass from this Air Force plane. You can see that the estimated pressure was about 941 millibars, it looks like, 941, 942. So it's likely come up a couple of millibars since this last pass, which is indicative of the storm now beginning to weaken. And it looks like the flight level on surface wind data supports maybe 155 mile per hour Category 4 right now, so it's likely coming off of that Category 5 peak. But there is some unfortunate side effects of the storm being this strong at this point in the Caribbean. A lot of models by now had anticipated the storm to be rapidly weakening by the time it was getting south of the Dominican Republic. But right now, this is more gradual weakening. We're not seeing rapid pressure falls from this recon data, at least yet, and the winds are not really coming down all too fast at all. Like I said, 155 miles per hour looks to be the support that we have right now from that plane. And this increases, which seems to be a common trend here in the Caribbean, this increases the potential intensity that we have once the storm comes through areas like Haiti and Jamaica as it goes throughout the next day. Now, for Jamaica, this is now a very real threat for you all. It was yesterday when we were talking about, say, a Category 2 coming in, but now being a Category 5 right now, this is now looking to be a major hurricane by the time it comes through the island. And the National Hurricane Center forecast has really been upticked since yesterday, now showing the potential for a Category 4 hurricane to come into the island nation. And this is a very serious situation, and you all need to take this extremely seriously. You have a hurricane warning in place for a reason. And if you're making preparations today, make sure that you rush those to completion today. Tropical storm force winds are probably going to come in tonight or tomorrow morning, and you don't want to be working in tropical storm force winds as conditions will rapidly deteriorate as you get closer and closer to the eye. You can see on this forecast from the National Hurricane Center that we have the storm here south of Haiti at 8 a.m. tomorrow, and then tomorrow evening here on the western tip of Jamaica. So tomorrow is not going to be a pretty day at all. Now, the good news is here, this storm is moving pretty fast. You can see the forward motion is about 22 miles per hour. So after it passes the island, it's going to quickly clear out. And by Thursday, it's probably going to be a nice sunny day, maybe a little bit breezy, but you might be good to start your recovery after the storm hits. And hopefully those impacts are not going to be all too strong, but as of right now, this is looking like a very serious situation for the island of Jamaica. Now, I don't want to undersell the impacts to Hispaniola as well. You'll note that we now have a hurricane watch in place for the southern coast of Haiti. We talked about this being a potential if the storm did trend a little bit further north, and an effect of it being stronger is that it's slightly trending north of the forecast yesterday. And while we're not expecting a direct hit, you can see how big this tropical storm force wind field has gotten, especially on the northeastern side. And translate this to here, you've got that tropical storm force wind field all along that southern coast of Haiti and the Dominican Republic. And you could also have bands coming in with hurricane force winds. And also those bands coming in can contribute to heavy rainfall. You can see on this forecast from the National Hurricane Center, we could be having local totals in the Dominican Republic, 6 to 8 inches, which is about 150 to 200 millimeters, maybe more than that. And on the southern coast of Haiti, we could have local totals exceeding 300 millimeters of rainfall. And this area is unfortunately notorious for causing a lot of flooding issues, even if you have a hurricane coming way south of you. We've had historical storms in the past cause significant flooding issues in Hispaniola, even tracking throughout the Central Caribbean here, well south of the island. This is a very serious situation for you all as well. And for Jamaica, you can see on this forecast, it is a little bit low on the western end of the island. This will likely change in the next, say, 24 hours. They'll be issuing, I think, another one either later today or early tomorrow, one of these forecasts. And we could be looking at potential rainfall totals in excess of 300 millimeters across a large portion of the island. And this is just adding on to the impacts of the hurricane. So again, for Jamaica and even Hispaniola, you need to have your preparations done by tonight, especially in Haiti. If the Dominican Republic, we're going to be getting our tropical storm force winds this afternoon. So, from the time of this recording, you may have a few more hours before anything arrives there. But at this point, your preparations should be done in the Dominican Republic. But for southern Haiti and Jamaica, have your preparations done by tonight. And you can see these probabilities of tropical storm force winds, 70% or greater in southern Haiti, and we have 90 to 100% odds in Jamaica, a virtual certainty of tropical storm force winds in this area. Now, Jamaica and Haiti is not the only place going to get hit. After the storm comes through Jamaica, we've got now hurricane watches in effect for the Cayman Islands. We've now had, as a result of the northern trend today, now an increased threat of the storm coming through these islands. And you can see this on the forecast. You all are now within the forecast cone. And this system could easily come through still as a hurricane, potentially even on the cusp of major hurricane intensity, depending on how much land interaction we get with Jamaica. Right now, and this is really the key thing for the rest of the entire forecast, is how much interaction do we have with Jamaica in the short term. If we have the storm coming right into Jamaica, that's likely going to disrupt the storm heavily because we have a lot of mountainous terrain across this island, and hurricanes definitely do not like that. They usually get ripped to shreds from high terrain. Now, it's not high enough like Hispaniola to completely destroy the storm. It would still likely survive the island passing, but it would still significantly disrupt the system if it had, on the other hand, gone south of the island and avoided that high topography. And models are still in great disagreement right now on exactly what's going to happen. And unfortunately, we really can't tell you exactly what's going to happen. This type of an uncertainty range that is usual for even less than 2 days out is wider north and south than the island of Jamaica is north to south. And really, all that we can do right now is watch the short-term trends. Now, Beryl has had a tendency to trend further north than forecast, likely as an effect of it being stronger than forecast. Now, I'd say this National Hurricane Center forecast is pretty good, showing it come in right on the southern coast of Jamaica. This is what the HWRF does show, and to the HWRF's credit, it has done very well forecasting this hurricane. And you can see that weakening trend happen. Still a major hurricane here, though, as it comes into Jamaica. This could be Category 3, even Category 4 on the forecast, an effect of it being stronger right now in the Central Caribbean. But you can see it brushed the south coast of Jamaica, and that would be a very significant hit for the island. But the effect of it not going right through that high terrain is that after it comes offshore, it still has a formidable northern eye wall with it. And if it comes to the Cayman Islands in that, we could be looking at, potentially hurricane force winds, especially if it's further north, tracking through, say, Grand Cayman or islands further north. Now, you see that continued weakening. It will likely weaken further after hitting Jamaica. I wouldn't be surprised if it does fall below hurricane intensity for a time in the Western Caribbean. But as we've talked about, the environment is going to get more favorable once it gets into the Western Caribbean. And if the storm does track south of Jamaica and still say half an inner core afterwards, that may not bode well for Mexico, as once the environment gets favorable, it wouldn't have all too much work to do to rebuild the entirety of that inner core, if, on the other hand, if it hits Jamaica. And right now for Mexico, what we can tell you is that we're probably going to see something around hurricane intensity come in. It doesn't look like we're going to be seeing, say a tropical storm at this point come in, just because of the increased favorability of conditions and the current expected track and the current intensity of Beryl. Now, if it does hit Jamaica head on, then we could be looking at maybe a tropical storm, especially if we get that inner core fully disrupted from that passage. But there's no guarantee right now. And for Mexico, you really got to pay attention to this. And we're probably going to get a hurricane watch, I'd imagine, later today. For preparations in there, you have until tomorrow night, really, to get your preparations done. You see, on this earliest time of arrival, Thursday morning. Now, you could probably push preparations to Thursday morning on this. This is the earliest reasonable time of arrival, so most likely will probably be Thursday afternoon. But I'd say Wednesday evening, Thursday morning, have your preparations done and completed for the storm. As you can see, we already have increasing odds of tropical storm force winds now getting into that 50 to 60% range along the east coast of Mexico. Now, I know there's going to be a lot of questions after Mexico, once it gets into the Gulf of Mexico. I know there's been a lot of model runs posted online today of, the GFS, for example, showing an intensifying hurricane coming into South Texas. Now, one thing that has become more clear today is that we'll probably see the storm come a little bit further north in the Gulf of Mexico as an effect of it being further north here in the Central Caribbean. But one thing I want to caution you all of in Mexico and in the Gulf Coast of the US is that when you see those model runs, keep in mind that that's just one run of one specific model, and there's a ton of uncertainty on exactly what may happen here. To highlight this uncertainty, this is the current intensity spread from a bunch of different models here. And this is showing you two distinct scenarios that we could be dealing with here with this storm. You can see that there are two camps. We have one that weakens drastically. This is likely a bunch of storms or models that hit Jamaica head on. So you get that significant weakening from that land interaction. But notice we have this other band of model members showing that this storm remains a little bit stronger. In fact, some of these have been so strong, showing maybe even a major hurricane coming into Mexico. And as an effect, you would still have a hurricane coming into the Gulf of Mexico. Right now, the most likely scenario is that the storm will weaken to a tropical storm once it enters the Gulf of Mexico. But there's still a ton of uncertainty. If it hits Jamaica head on, we decrease the intensity in the rest of this forecast. If it does not and stays south and keeps that inner coast structure fairly well intact, then we could increase this entire potential. And the environment does look like it will be favorable for some intensification in that starting point when it gets into the Gulf. Tropical storm, or maybe better built tropical storm, maybe low-end hurricane when it gets in here. That will be key to exactly what we have happening in the Gulf of Mexico. And you can see some of this highlighted in the GFS ensemble tracks. You can see stronger storms that come into the Yucatan Peninsula tend to be stronger at landfall when they come into either Mexico or the U.S. Gulf Coast. Well, conversely, or inversely rather, these storms that are weaker coming into the Yucatan Peninsula tend to be weaker coming into the Gulf Coast of the U.S. So there's a lot of uncertainty. You can see this is day 7 on this ensemble mean. There's a lot of time to watch this, and just make sure that you're not looking at exact deterministic runs of hurricane models and even global models and taking that verbatim. There's still a lot of uncertainty, and we don't know exactly what's going to happen. We don't know if there's going to be a hurricane coming in or if it's just going to be a tropical storm coming into the Gulf Coast. But for those in Mexico and the Gulf Coast of the U.S., it is definitely something you need to monitor as the storm comes towards the west. This is now something that is more of a real possibility, a real threat, that a storm could come your way as we go into this weekend and into early next week. But we'll continue to watch it, and I'll have videos throughout the rest of this week into this weekend as well, covering this potential. That's all that I've got for today. Stay safe in Jamaica and Haiti and the Dominican Republic as Hurricane Beryl comes through. I'll have another video tomorrow, but that's all for now. Thanks for watching.